Hey guys, tonight we're riding into the heart of one of America's most powerful myths. We're setting our sights on the cowboy. The image is etched into our collective memory, a lone figure on a horse, silhouetted against a desert sunset, the master of his own destiny, a hero of rugged individualism. Hollywood, dime novels, and a century of storytelling have sold us this legend. But tonight, we're peeling back that sun-bleached, romantic facade. We're going to explore the gritty, painful, and often deeply disturbing reality of what it truly meant to be a cowboy in the Wild West. It was a life not of heroic freedom, but of brutal labor, profound loneliness, and constant, grinding hardship. Forget the handsome hero who wins the gunfight and rides off into the sunset. The truth is far more tragic and far more human. If you enjoy these explorations that look beyond the myths we're told, I would be so grateful if you took a quiet moment to like this video. And if you're new here, perhaps consider subscribing to join our community. It's the single best way to support this channel. As always, I love to see who is joining us on these journeys. Please drop a comment below and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. There's something truly special about knowing we're all connected through these stories from all over the globe. Now, it's time to settle in, dim the lights, get comfortable, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum. Let's leave the modern world behind and ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations. The year is 1875. You're 19 years old, and you've just been hired on for your first cattle drive. You're not a hero, a gunslinger, or an adventurer. You are a low-wage, seasonal laborer about to embark on one of the most grueling, monotonous, and dangerous jobs in America. You're not chasing freedom, you're chasing a paycheck. You are a cowboy. And you have no idea what you've just signed up for. Before we step onto the trail, let's look at you, the person beneath the wide-brimmed hat. The myth of the cowboy is one of a self-reliant, freedom-loving, white American hero. The reality is far more complex and interesting. First, you are young. The vast majority of cowboys are in their late teens or early 20s. This is a young man's game, a job that requires a strong back, endless stamina, and a certain naive tolerance for misery that tends to fade with age. You likely come from a poor background. Perhaps you're a farmer's son from Texas or Missouri, looking to escape a life of plowing fields. Maybe you're a recent immigrant from Germany or Ireland, with few skills and even fewer prospects. Or, very likely, you are not white. This is one of the biggest truths the Hollywood myth erases. Historians estimate that as many as 1 in 4 cowboys was black. After the Civil War, thousands of freed slaves, who already possessed immense skill with cattle and horses from their time on southern ranches, moved west, seeking opportunity and an escape from the crushing racism of the Reconstruction-era South. The trail offered a harsh meritocracy. While racism certainly existed, a man was judged more on his ability to handle a horse and rope a steer than on the color of his skin. The open range was not a paradise of equality, but it offered a level of autonomy and respect that was impossible to find elsewhere. An even larger percentage of cowboys are Mexican. The entire tradition of the American cowboy, the gear, the techniques, the language, is a direct inheritance from the Mexican vaquero. For centuries, vaqueros had been working cattle on the vast haciendas of what is now the American Southwest. They were the original masters of the open range. Your lariat, your chaps, your very understanding of how to manage a herd on a long drive, all of it comes from them. Many drives are staffed with experienced vaqueros, their skills indispensable, their presence a quiet reminder of the deep Hispanic roots of this supposedly all-American icon. You are not an independent hero. You are an employee, part of a rigid, hierarchical crew. At the top is the trail boss. He is the absolute authority on the drive. His word is law. He is often a seasoned, older man who has made the journey dozens of times. He is responsible for the herd, the men, and the payroll. Beneath him is the cook, or koozie, a figure of immense importance. He not only prepares the monotonous meals, but also acts as the camp's doctor, dentist, and bartender, dispensing advice and whiskey with equal measure. The chuck wagon is his kingdom, and you do not cross him. Then there are the wranglers, who are in charge of the remuda, the herd of spare horses. And then there is you, the common hand. You are paid about $1 a day, maybe $30 a month. It sounds like decent money, but you won't see a dime of it until the end of the trail, 3 or 4 months from now. And from that pay will be deducted the cost of any gear you bought from the trail boss on credit, or the value of any cattle you lost through negligence. You are, in essence, a migrant worker on a long, slow, dangerous contract. The notion of the cowboy as a lone wolf is a complete fabrication. You are part of a team, and your survival depends on the discipline and cooperation of the entire crew. You work together, you eat together, and you face danger together. The rugged individualism of the myth would get you killed, or at least fired, within a week. You are not a romantic adventurer. You are cheap, disposable labor. You own almost nothing. Perhaps your saddle if you're lucky. Your horse belongs to the outfit. The cattle belong to a distant owner you will never meet. Your life, for the next few months, belongs to the trail. As you stand at the edge of the vast, restless sea of longhorn cattle, the dust already stinging your eyes, the myth begins to crumble. This isn't a story of glory. It's a job. And it's about to become the hardest job you've ever known. Your worldly possessions are few, and most of them are strapped to your horse. The gear of a cowboy is not about fashion or style. It is a set of functional, life-saving tools, each one shaped by the harsh necessities of the trail. Forget the pristine, silver-studded outfits of the movies. Your gear is worn, stained, and brutally practical. Your most important possession, the one thing you might actually own, is your saddle. A good saddle costs more than a month's wages, and it is worth every penny. It is your office chair, your workbench, and sometimes your pillow. You will spend up to 18 hours a day in it, and a poorly fitting saddle can cripple both you and your horse. It is a complex piece of engineering, with a high cantle at the back to support you, and a sturdy horn at the front to dally your rope when you've caught a steer. It is heavy, made of thick leather, and designed to distribute weight and withstand the violent shock of a roped animal hitting the end of the line. You take meticulous care of it, cleaning and oiling the leather whenever you have a spare moment, because your life and livelihood depend on it. Next are your boots. They are not designed for walking. In fact, they are terrible for it. They have high, underslung heels designed to keep your foot from slipping through the stirrup if your horse rears or falls. The pointed toe helps you find the stirrup quickly. Walking any distance in them is a form of torture, but you are a horseman. You walk as little as possible. At the end of a long day, your feet are swollen and sore, crammed into these stiff leather prisons. Your clothing is simple and durable. You wear rough wool or denim pants, a simple cotton or wool shirt, and a vest. The vest is not for style. Its pockets are essential for carrying your tobacco, a pocket knife, and other small necessities. Over it all, you might wear chaps, leather leggings that protect your legs from thorny brush, cactus, and rope burns. They are hot, heavy, and cumbersome, but they are better than shredded skin. Your hat is your most versatile tool. It is not the clean, perfectly shaped Stetson of the movie hero. It is a wide-brimmed felt hat, stained with sweat and dirt, its shape battered by wind and rain. It is your umbrella in a downpour, your sunshade under the brutal summer sun. You use it to fan a campfire, to signal other riders from a distance, and to scoop water from a stream for a desperate drink. Losing your hat on the open prairie is a serious, potentially life-threatening event. Then there is your rope, your lariat. It is your primary tool for managing the cattle. Made of braided rawhide or grass, it is stiff and requires immense skill to handle. You spend countless hours practicing your throw, knowing that a quick, accurate loop can mean the difference between controlling a stray and starting a stampede. Finally, let's talk about the gun. The image of the cowboy with a 6-shooter strapped to his hip is iconic, but the reality is more complicated. Yes, many cowboys own a pistol, often a Colt Peacemaker or a Remington. But it is not for duels at high noon. It is a tool, just like your rope. You use it to shoot a rattlesnake, to finish off a cow with a broken leg, or, most importantly, to turn a stampede. Firing a pistol near the lead animals of a stampeding herd can sometimes break their momentum and turn them, a desperate last resort. But on a day-to-day basis, the gun is often a nuisance. It is heavy, it gets in the way, and accidental discharges are a constant danger. Many trail bosses forbid their men from carrying guns in camp to prevent drunken gunfights. The gun is part of your world, but it is not the central, defining feature the myths would have you believe. Your skill with a rope is infinitely more valuable than your skill with a gun. All of this gear is functional, but none of it is comfortable. Your clothes are constantly caked in dust and sweat. Your saddle sores are a persistent, burning agony. The reality of being a cowboy is a state of perpetual, low-grade physical misery. You are not a dashing knight in leather. You are a workman in a uniform of grit and grime, your body a testament to the daily grind of the trail. The concept of a gentle awakening does not exist on a cattle drive. Your day begins long before the sun, in the cold, pre-dawn darkness. The first sound you hear is the cook banging on a pot with a metal spoon, his gravelly voice shouting, "Chuck, come and get it." This is your only alarm clock, and it is brutally effective. You don't get up. You crawl out of your bedroll, every muscle in your body screaming in protest. Your bed is a thin blanket or two laid directly on the hard, cold ground. There is no tent. You sleep under the stars, exposed to the elements. If it rained during the night, you wake up damp and shivering, your blanket a sodden weight. If it was a clear night on the plains, you might wake up with a thin layer of frost covering your blanket. Your breath, a white cloud in the frigid air. There is no time for personal hygiene. There are no baths, no showers. The nearest thing to washing is a quick splash of cold water on your face from a communal basin near the chuck wagon. You don't brush your teeth. You don't change your clothes. You wear the same dusty, sweat-stiffened outfit you wore yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. The smell of unwashed men, of horses, of cattle, of stale sweat and wood smoke is the permanent atmosphere of the drive. You become so used to it that you cease to notice it. You stumble through the darkness toward the one beacon of hope, the campfire next to the chuck wagon. The fire is the center of your universe. It provides warmth, light, and most importantly, coffee. The coffee is terrible. It is made in a large pot, boiled for hours with the grounds still in it. It is black, bitter, and so strong it could dissolve a spoon. Cowboys call it six-shooter coffee, claiming you could float a pistol in it. It is often acrid and tastes faintly of the alkali water it was brewed with. But it is hot, and it is caffeinated. You drink it gratefully, scalding your tongue, the bitter liquid a jolt to your sleep-addled system. Breakfast is served from the back of the chuck wagon, and breakfast is almost always the same. Beans. Sometimes it's a plate of beef, if a calf had to be put down. But mostly, it's beans, perhaps with a side of salt pork or bacon, and a sourdough biscuit, hard and heavy as a rock. The cook, the koozie, is the undisputed king of this domain. You do not complain about his cooking, ever. To do so is to risk being poisoned, or worse, having your coffee privileges revoked. You eat quickly, squatting on the ground, your plate balanced on your knees. There is little conversation. Mornings are for eating, drinking coffee, and mentally preparing for the grueling day ahead. Before the sun even crests the horizon, you are in the saddle. The herd is already stirring, a vast, lowing, restless sea of horns and hides. Your job is to get them moving. The drive is a slow, relentless march, covering maybe 10 to 15 miles a day. It is a pace that sounds easy, but the work is constant. The air, still cool from the night, will soon turn into a furnace under the prairie sun. The ground, which was hard and cold, will become a source of shimmering heat. The quiet of the morning will be replaced by a constant cacophony. The lowing of thousands of cattle, the shouts of the other cowboys, the creak of your saddle leather, and the endless, monotonous plodding of hooves. This is the beginning of your 18-hour workday. There are no weekends, no holidays, no sick days. There is only the trail, stretching endlessly before you. As you sip the last of your bitter coffee and swing yourself into the saddle, the aches in your body are a familiar reminder of your reality. This is not an adventure. This is a job, and the sun is coming up. The grind has begun. The herd is your world. It is a living, breathing, unpredictable beast, 2,000 strong, and for the next 3 months, its welfare is the sole focus of your existence. Your job is to move this sprawling city of cattle from the plains of Texas to the railheads in Kansas or Wyoming. It is a task of immense scale, requiring constant vigilance, skill, and an almost telepathic understanding of animal psychology. The drive is organized with military precision. The herd moves in a long, drawn-out formation, often stretching for a mile or more. At the very front are the lead steers, the natural leaders of the herd. Riding just ahead of them are 2 of the most experienced cowboys, the point riders. Their job is to guide the herd, to set the pace, and to navigate the terrain. It is a position of high responsibility. Flanking the lead steers are the swing riders, followed by the flank riders, who control the sides of the herd, keeping the animals from straying too far. They are the living fences of the drive. And then, at the very back, comes the least desirable position of all, a job reserved for the newest and least experienced hands. This is your job. You are a drag rider. Congratulations. You have been assigned to the cowboy equivalent of hell. Your world, for 10 to 12 hours a day, is a thick, choking, inescapable cloud of dust. It is kicked up by 2,000 head of cattle and several dozen horses. It coats your skin, your clothes, your gear. It gets in your eyes, turning them red and raw. It gets in your mouth and nose, and the taste of grit becomes your constant companion. You breathe it in until your lungs feel heavy and caked with the fine, alkali dust of the prairie. At the end of the day, you will be covered in a thick, brown crust, a human statue made of dirt and sweat. The only clean parts of your face will be the tracks where tears have run, or where you've wiped the grime away with a sleeve. Your job is to push the laggards, the sick, the weak, the lazy, and the newborn calves that struggle to keep up. The air is filled with the mournful, incessant bawling of these calves, a sound that will echo in your ears long after you've fallen into an exhausted sleep. You are constantly dismounting, hoisting a struggling calf onto your saddle, and riding with it until you can reunite it with its mother. You are prodding, shouting, and sometimes whipping the stubborn animals that refuse to move. The smell is overwhelming. You are not just behind the herd, you are in its wake. The stench of manure and urine is a thick, tangible presence, mingling with the dust to create a uniquely foul atmosphere. You become so accustomed to it that you hardly notice, but any traveller you encounter on the trail will give you a wide berth. Riding drag is a relentless, soul-crushing, monotonous task. There is no glory here, no heroic view from the front. There is only the back end of a cow, the dust, the noise, and the smell. It is the proving ground for a new cowboy. If you can endure the drag without complaint, without quitting, you earn a measure of respect. You might eventually be moved up to a flank or swing position. But first, you must serve your time in this dusty, miserable purgatory. The herd itself is a skittish, nervous creature. The longhorns are semi-wild animals, not the placid dairy cows of a farm. They are prone to panic. A sudden noise, a clap of thunder, a snapping twig, the cry of a predator can send a wave of fear through the herd, turning them from a slow-moving river into a terrifying, unstoppable avalanche of horns and hooves. This is a stampede, the cowboy's greatest fear, and a constant, looming threat. Even when the herd is calm, the work is never ending. You are constantly riding the edges of your position, turning back astray, watching for signs of trouble. You learn to read the cattle, to understand their moods. You learn the difference between a contented low and a nervous bellow. Your life becomes a rhythm of plodding hooves, of swirling dust, of the sun beating down on your neck. You are not a master of the wilderness. You are a servant to the herd, a tiny, human cog in a vast organic machine, slowly, relentlessly, moving north. As the day wears on, your body aches, your throat is raw, and your mind is numb with the sheer grinding monotony of it all. This is the reality behind the romance. It is not a thrilling adventure. It is a job of almost unimaginable boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer, heart-stopping terror. The trail is not a gentle path. It is a landscape of hidden dangers, a place where nature itself is a powerful and often malevolent antagonist. The greatest threats you face are not rustlers or hostile natives. They are the elemental forces of the American West, which can turn a placid, monotonous day into a desperate fight for survival in the blink of an eye. The most terrifying of these dangers is the stampede. Imagine you are on night guard. It is the graveyard shift, from midnight to 2 in the morning. The rest of the camp is asleep. The herd is bedded down, a dark, sprawling mass of sleeping bodies under a vast, star-filled sky. It is your job, along with 1 or 2 other cowboys, to ride slowly around the perimeter of the herd, singing. You sing low, mournful songs, your voice a constant, soothing presence meant to keep the cattle calm. The sound is meant to drown out the sudden noises of the prairie night, the howl of a coyote, the rustle of a snake in the grass that could trigger a panic. The silence of the plains is so profound that any unexpected sound is magnified. Tonight, the air is unnaturally still and heavy. A storm is brewing on the horizon. You can see the faint, silent flicker of lightning in the distant clouds. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning cracks much closer, a blinding flash followed by an instantaneous, deafening clap of thunder. The reaction from the herd is instantaneous and absolute. It is not a gradual awakening. It is an explosion. 2,000 animals, weighing 1,000 pounds each, leap to their feet as one. There is a low rumble, a sound you feel in the bones of your horse and in your own chest, and then it erupts into a deafening roar. The ground trembles as if an earthquake has struck. This is a stampede. There is no time to think. There is only instinct. Your horse, trained for this moment, pivots and lunges into a gallop alongside the herd. You are not trying to stop them. That is impossible. You are trying to turn them. The goal is to get to the front of the herd, to the lead animals, and force them to turn, to run in a circle, until they exhaust themselves. You are riding in pitch darkness, the only light coming from the terrifying flashes of lightning. You are not on a road. You are on open prairie, pockmarked with prairie dog holes, rocks, and gullies. A single misstep from your horse means you both go down, and you will be trampled into the earth by 1,000 hooves, your body never to be found. You ride with a desperate, focused terror. The noise is a physical force, a wall of sound made of thunder, hooves, and the panicked bellows of the cattle. The air is thick with the smell of rain, ozone, and the hot, metallic scent of fear. You lean low over your horse's neck, shouting, your voice lost in the chaos. You might pull your pistol and fire into the air near the lead steers, the flash and bang of the gun, a desperate attempt to break their forward momentum. You are no longer a cowboy. You are a tiny, fragile speck of life caught in a natural disaster, an avalanche of flesh and bone. If you succeed, if you and the other riders can turn the herd, it will be a victory born of sheer luck and horsemanship. The herd will eventually slow, milling in a confused, exhausted circle. The rest of the camp, awakened by the roar, will ride out to help you round them up. If you fail, the herd will run for miles, scattering across the prairie. It will take days, even weeks, to regather them, and many will be lost. And it is very likely that one or more of your fellow cowboys will not return. They will be found the next day, their bodies broken and unrecognizable, their lives sacrificed to the blind panic of the herd. Even if you survive the stampede, nature has other weapons. The thunderstorms on the plains are of a terrifying scale. With no trees or hills for protection, you are the tallest object for miles around. Lightning is a constant threat. Cowboys are frequently struck and killed, their bodies found next to their equally dead horses. Hailstorms can descend with shocking violence, with ice stones the size of eggs that can injure cattle and knock a man from his saddle. River crossings are another site of frequent tragedy. There are no bridges. You must force the reluctant herd into the churning, muddy water of rivers like the Red, the Brazos, or the Platte. The cattle are terrified of the water. If the lead steers refuse to enter, the entire herd can pile up on the bank. If they do enter, and are swept away by a strong current, they can panic, creating a horrifying pile-up midstream. Cattle, horses, and men can be dragged under and drowned. Sometimes, a river is filled with quicksand, a hidden trap that can swallow an animal whole. You watch as a steer sinks into the muck, its terrified eyes wide, and there is nothing you can do. The weather itself is a form of torture. The summer sun is relentless, leading to heat stroke, dehydration, and horribly sunburned skin. The dust is a constant plague. In the winter or on northern drives, a sudden blizzard can trap the herd, freezing cattle and cowboys alike. You are not a conqueror of the wilderness. You are its victim, a small, insignificant being, at the mercy of forces far beyond your control. Every day you survive is a victory against the overwhelming power of the American landscape. Every sunrise you live to see is a gift, one you know can be snatched away in an instant by a flash of lightning or the thunder of 1,000 hooves. Nature's fury, in all its terrifying grandeur, is at least impersonal. A lightning bolt doesn't hate you. A blizzard doesn't hunt you. It's a matter of cosmic bad luck, of being in the wrong place when the universe decides to flex its muscle. But now we turn to a different kind of danger. The trail is not an empty wasteland. It is a thriving, pulsing ecosystem, and you and your herd are merely the newest, loudest, and most conspicuous part of it. The threats here are living, breathing creatures. They have needs, instincts, and appetites. They are personal, and they range from the microscopically maddening to the lethally majestic. The 1,000 tiny tyrants. Let's start small. because the smallest threats are often the most constant and sanity-shredding. Forget wolves and bears for a moment. Your most persistent enemy, the one that will occupy your thoughts every waking and sleeping moment, is the insect. The air itself is alive with them. As you ride, a personal cloud of flies envelops you. They are not the lazy houseflies you might know. These are vicious, persistent, biting flies. They swarm your face, trying to crawl into your eyes, your nostrils, your mouth. They feast on the sweat that streams down your neck, on the salty residue on your hatband. They land on any open sore, on the chapped skin of your knuckles, their touch a tickling violation. They are a living shroud of irritation. The cattle are tormented even worse, their hides twitching constantly, their tails whipping in a futile effort to drive the pests away. The sound is the true torture, a constant, high-pitched, maddening buzz that becomes the soundtrack of your daylight hours, a whine that bores directly into your skull and stays there even after you close your eyes. When the sun begins to set and you stop for the day near any source of water, a creek, a river, even a stagnant pond, a new plague arises. The mosquitoes ascend in biblical clouds. Their collective hum is a deeper, more threatening tone, a promise of the misery to come. You have no repellent. Repellent? What's that? You have no DEET, no citronella candle, no protective netting. Your only defense is thick clothing, which is sweltering, or the smoke from the campfire, which means spending your evening with burning, watering eyes. It's a choice between suffocating in smoke or being eaten alive. You choose the smoke, but they still find you. They are relentless. They bite through your shirt. They find the gap between your boot and your trousers. In the morning, you wake to find your hands, neck, and face covered in a constellation of itchy, painful welts. But the torment doesn't end there. Night brings the crawlers. You spread your bedroll on the ground, the very earth teeming with life that wants a piece of you. Ticks, hungry for a blood meal, crawl up your boots and burrow into the warm places on your body, your groin, your armpits, the back of your neck. You'll find them in the morning, their grey bodies swollen with your blood. Removing them is a grim ritual, trying to get the head out without it breaking off under your skin to fester and infect. Lice from the other men, passed around in the close quarters of camp, might make a home in your hair or the seams of your clothes. And then there are the chiggers, microscopic mites that burrow into your skin and die, leaving behind a toxin that causes an itch of such profound, maddening intensity it feels like a fire under your skin, an itch that can last for weeks, long after the creature that caused it is gone. You simply endure it. You scratch until your skin is raw and bleeding, opening yourself up to infection. The lack of sleep, the constant irritation, the feeling of being constantly fed upon, it wears you down. It chips away at your resolve, making you irritable and exhausted. This isn't a grand danger that will make it into a dime novel. This is a quiet, intimate, and deeply personal war of attrition, and you are losing. The serpent in the grass. You learn to walk differently out here. You don't stride, you watch. Your eyes are constantly scanning the ground ahead, reading the texture of the prairie grass, looking for the coiled shape, the diamond pattern, the subtle anomaly that means danger. The prairie is home to rattlesnakes, and an encounter is not a matter of if, but when. The sound is unmistakable. It's not a child's rattle. It's a dry, papery, urgent hiss. A sound that bypasses your ears and speaks directly to the most ancient, primal part of your brain. It says death is here. The horses know it too. A horse that smells or sees a snake can shy violently, bucking and rearing, throwing its rider to the hard-packed earth, potentially breaking a limb. A snake bite to a horse's leg is a disaster. The leg will swell to the size of a tree trunk, the tissue will die, and the animal will be hopelessly lame. A lame horse is a liability you can't afford. Your only option is to reach for your pistol and perform a mercy killing, leaving a valuable animal to the coyotes. A bite to a cowboy is a life-or-death crisis, with the odds stacked heavily against life. You have no phone to call for help. There are no hospitals. There is no antivenom. The moment the fangs sink into your flesh, a cocktail of hemotoxins and neurotoxins is pumped into your body. The first sensation is a sharp, stabbing pain, like two white-hot needles being driven into you. Within minutes, a fire races up your veins. The area around the bite begins to swell at an alarming rate. Your leg, if you're bitten on the ankle, can swell to double or triple its normal size within an hour, the skin stretched so taut it becomes shiny and translucent. The pain is indescribable, a deep, throbbing, relentless agony that consumes your entire consciousness. The other cowboys gather around, their faces grim. They know the prognosis. They will do what they can, based on the grim folklore of the frontier. Someone might produce a knife, intending to slice the wound open to let the poison out. Someone else might offer to suck the venom from the wound. You know now this is not only useless, but dangerous, introducing infection and poison to the rescuer. But in that moment, in that desperate, terrified huddle, any action feels better than no action. The most common treatment is to give the man a bottle of whiskey, not as medicine, but as an anesthetic. The goal is to make him pass out, to give him a brief respite from the torment, while everyone hopes his body can somehow metabolize the poison. More often than not, it can't. You watch as the swelling continues, as dark, ugly blisters form on the skin. You see the tissue around the bite begin to die. This is necrosis. The flesh turns a dark purple, then black. A foul smell begins to emanate from the limb. If the man survives the initial shock and the poison's effect on his heart and nerves, he will likely lose the limb to gangrene, if a crude amputation can even be performed. Usually he succumbs to the poison, his body racked with fever and convulsions. His death is slow, agonizing, and ugly. Every time you hear that dry rattle, that is what you see in your mind. The howling hunger. As night falls and you settle in for your turn on guard duty, a new sound joins the chirping of crickets. It starts as a single, mournful cry that rises and falls, a sound of pure, wild loneliness. Then another joins in, and another, until the darkness is filled with a chorus of howls, wolves and coyotes. They are a constant presence, a ghost herd shadowing your own. You rarely see them in the daylight, just a flicker of movement on a distant ridge or the flash of their eyes at the edge of the firelight. They are cunning and patient. They are too timid to attack a full-grown longhorn or a cowboy on his horse. They are not the ravenous packs of movie fiction. They are strategists. They are looking for weakness. Their targets are the newborn calves, clumsy and vulnerable, that get separated from their mothers. They prey on the sick steer that has fallen behind the rest of the herd, the old, the weak, the stragglers. Your job on night guard is not to hunt them, but simply to be a presence. You ride the perimeter of the bedded-down herd, humming or singing softly to let the cattle know you are there, and to let the predators know the herd is protected. A sudden shout, a gunshot fired into the air, is usually enough to drive them back into the shadows. But their howls are more than just a nuisance. They are a haunting, nightly reminder of the fundamental law of this land, the predator-prey dynamic. Out here, you and your half-wild cattle are not at the top of the food chain. You are merely one link in it, a temporary and vulnerable intrusion into a world that is governed by hunger and survival. The wolf's song is the anthem of that world, a world that is vast, unsentimental, and always, always watching. The human predators. While nature is a constant threat, you also keep a wary eye on your own species. The threat of rustlers, or cattle thieves, is real. The dime novels would have you believe the trail is a running gun battle from Texas to Kansas. But that's a wild exaggeration. A well-organized trail outfit with a dozen armed and experienced cowboys is a hard target. A full frontal assault is suicidal for a small gang of outlaws. Instead, the threat is more insidious. Rustlers work at the margins. They might try to run off a portion of your remuda, the herd of spare horses, under the cover of darkness. They might try to cut a few dozen steers from the main herd during the confusion of a river crossing or a storm. They are parasites, not conquerors. Part of your job is to prevent this, to ride the flanks and the drag, keeping the herd tight and watching for any suspicious riders. If you catch them, justice is swift and absolute. There is no judge, no jury, no court of law. The law of the trail is the rope. A rustler caught in the act is disarmed and unceremoniously hanged from the nearest sturdy tree limb. It's a grim, ugly business, but in a land with no formal law enforcement, it's how property, and by extension, your livelihood is protected. You are armed with a Colt revolver and a Winchester rifle, and while you hope never to use them against another man, you are prepared to. It's a part of the job description, a violent potentiality simmering just beneath the surface of the daily grind. The first people. Of all the living threats, the most mythologized, misunderstood, and morally complex is the encounter with Native Americans. The image of the cowboys circling the wagons to fend off a feathered war party is burned into the American soul. That image is, for the most part, a lie. The reality you encounter is far more nuanced and far more tragic. By the time of the great cattle drives in the 1870s and 80s, the great tribes of the plains have already been broken. The Comanche, the Kiowa, the Cheyenne, the Lakota, most have been defeated in brutal wars and forced onto reservations. The very land you are driving your cattle across, this vast, open range, was their home. Their entire way of life, which was built around the migratory herds of buffalo, has been systematically destroyed. The buffalo have been slaughtered by the million, partly for their hides, and partly as a deliberate strategy by the US government to starve the tribes into submission and clear the way for railroads and cattle. So, when you see a group of riders silhouetted on a distant butte, your first reaction is a jolt of fear, a tightening in your gut. This fear is real, fed by the sensationalist stories you've heard your whole life. But the encounter that follows is rarely the one from the stories. A group of braves, perhaps 5 or 10 of them, will ride out to meet your trail boss. They are not decorated for war. Their faces are grim, proud, and weary. They do not raise their weapons. They ride to negotiate. Through a mix of hand signals and broken English, they make their purpose clear. This is their land you are crossing. Your 2,000 cattle are eating their grass and drinking their water. They are demanding a toll, a tax for passage. They usually ask for a few head of cattle. The trail boss, a practical man whose primary goal is to get the herd to market with minimal loss, almost always complies. He is not a fool. He knows a fight would be costly, potentially scattering the herd for miles. He cuts out a few of the weaker steers, the ones he might have lost anyway, and gives them to the warriors. There is a tense, formal exchange. The braves wordlessly take the cattle and ride away. Your drive is allowed to pass in peace. Sometimes the interaction is one of trade. You might exchange some of your precious coffee or tobacco for buffalo jerky or intricately beaded leather goods. But even in these peaceful moments, there is an unavoidable and deeply uncomfortable undercurrent. You are a trespasser. You are the living symbol of the force that has shattered their world. You look at them and see a defeated alien people, and your feelings are a confused mix of ingrained prejudice, fear, and a dawning, unwelcome flicker of empathy. They look at you, a young, sunburned man driving another man's cattle across their ancestral homeland, and what they feel, you can only guess. A profound resentment, a bitter resignation, a memory of a world that is gone forever. Yes, violent confrontations still happen. They are the exception, not the rule. They might be sparked by a trigger-happy, inexperienced cowboy, or by a renegade band of young warriors who refuse to accept the grim reality of reservation life. But the fear of an attack is a far more constant and powerful force than the attack itself. It's a psychological burden you carry every day, a low-grade anxiety that makes you scan the horizon and flinch at any unexpected movement. In this world of living threats, you become something other than a simple cowhand. You become a naturalist, a watchman, a diplomat, and a survivor. You are not a hero from a storybook, fighting clear-cut villains. You are a small, cautious creature yourself, navigating a complex and dangerous world. You learn that a threat can come buzzing from the air, rattling from the grass, howling from the darkness, or it can come riding over the next hill. Its face a reflection of a deep and painful history that you are now, inextricably, a part of. The life of a cowboy is a life of chronic, unceasing physical pain. It is not the acute, dramatic pain of a gunfight, but a slow, grinding accumulation of aches, sores, and injuries that becomes the normal state of being. Your body is a machine pushed far beyond its limits, and it is constantly breaking down. The most immediate and persistent source of misery is the saddle. You spend almost your entire waking life on horseback. The constant friction and pressure of the saddle on your body creates a constellation of painful ailments. Saddle sores are a given. Raw, chafed patches of skin on your inner thighs and buttocks that burn with every movement. They can become infected, turning into angry, pus-filled boils that make sitting in the saddle an exercise in pure agony. You have no real remedy. You might try to pad the saddle with a spare piece of cloth, or apply a bit of axle grease as a crude lubricant, but mostly you just endure it, shifting your weight, gritting your teeth, and praying for the end of the day. Your back is in a constant state of protest. The jarring, jolting motion of a horse, hour after hour, day after day, puts immense strain on your spine. By the end of the day, a deep, burning ache settles in your lower back, a pain that never truly goes away. You sleep on the hard ground, which does nothing to alleviate it. You wake up stiff and sore, and the moment you swing back into the saddle, the cycle of pain begins anew. Many older cowboys are permanently stooped, their bodies bent into the shape of a man on horseback. Injuries are not a possibility, they are an inevitability. The most common is being thrown from a horse. A horse can shy at a snake, stumble in a prairie dog hole, or simply decide it has had enough of you. Being thrown can result in anything from a few bruises to a broken bone. A broken arm or collarbone is a serious problem. There is no sick leave. The trail boss might let you ride in the chuck wagon for a few days, but you are expected to get back to work as soon as possible. You will be riding, roping, and working with a broken bone. The pain a constant, throbbing reminder of your fragility. A broken leg is far worse. It can be a death sentence, or at least the end of your career as a cowboy. If the break is simple, the cook might try to set it, pulling the leg straight and splinting it with pieces of wood from a crate. But if the break is compound, with the bone piercing the skin, infection is almost certain. Gangrene will set in, and the only recourse is amputation. This gruesome surgery will be performed on the tailgate of the chuck wagon with a butcher's saw, no anesthetic but whiskey, and a very high probability of a fatal infection. If you survive, you are a cripple, unable to ever ride again. Your life as a cowboy is over. Other injuries are frequent. Being kicked or trampled by a horse can cause broken ribs or internal injuries. A rope burn from a dallied lariat can strip the skin from your hand. The sheer physical labor of wrestling a calf to the ground for branding leaves you with sprains, strains, and deep bruises. And when you are injured, there is no real medical care. The cook is the camp doctor. His medical knowledge is rudimentary at best. He can stitch a wound with a common needle and thread, pull a rotten tooth with pliers, and dispense whiskey and folk remedies. For anything serious, you are on your own. You are hundreds of miles from the nearest town, and even the town doctor, as we have seen, is a figure of limited ability. The cumulative effect of this constant pain and injury is profound. Your body ages prematurely. A 30-year-old cowboy often looks 50, his face weathered and leathery, his body a roadmap of scars and old injuries, his movements stiff and pained. You learn to live with pain, to accept it as a fundamental condition of your existence. It becomes a part of you, like the dust on your clothes or the calluses on your hands. The romantic image of the healthy, vigorous cowboy is a cruel joke. The reality is a body that is being slowly, systematically destroyed by the very work that defines it. The physical hardships of the trail are brutal, but they are visible, tangible. There is another kind of suffering that is harder to see, a quiet erosion of the mind that takes place in the vast, empty spaces of the American West. The psychological toll of being a cowboy is as profound as any physical injury. The most powerful force acting on your mind is the profound, crushing loneliness. You are surrounded by other men, but genuine intimacy is rare. The cowboy code values stoicism and self-reliance. You do not talk about your fears, your sadness, your homesickness. To do so is to show weakness. Conversation is often limited to the practicalities of the job, crude jokes, and stories of past adventures. There is a camaraderie, a bond forged in shared hardship, but it is not a deep emotional connection. For weeks, even months, you may not see another soul outside of your own small crew. The landscape itself is a source of this loneliness. The immense, featureless prairie, stretching to the horizon in every direction, can make you feel like a tiny, insignificant speck in a vast, indifferent universe. The sky is so large it feels like it could swallow you whole. This sense of being adrift in an empty world can lead to a state that was sometimes called prairie madness, a form of depression and anxiety brought on by sensory deprivation and extreme isolation. To combat this, you develop a deep, almost mystical connection with your horse. Your horse is your partner, your confidant, your only consistent companion. You talk to it, you sing to it, you share your quietest thoughts with it. It is a relationship of profound, unspoken trust. Your life depends on your horse, and its life depends on you. This bond is one of the few sources of genuine affection in your life. The monotony of the job is another psychological burden. The days blend into one another, a blur of dust, sun, and the slow, plodding movement of the herd. There is little intellectual stimulation. Most cowboys are functionally illiterate. There are no books, no newspapers. Your world shrinks to the immediate, repetitive tasks of the drive. Your mind, starved of novelty, can turn inward in unhealthy ways, leading to brooding, melancholy, or a simmering, directionless anger. This is where the tradition of cowboy songs and poetry is born. In the evenings, sitting around the campfire, or alone on night guard under the stars, you sing. The songs are simple, mournful tunes about lost love, the hardships of the trail, dying cowboys, and the dream of a better life. They are a way to pass the time, to voice the emotions you cannot speak, and to create a shared culture that binds you to your fellow cowboys. Songs like "Bury Me Not on the Lone Prairie" or "The Streets of Laredo" are not just entertainment, they are a form of collective therapy, a way to make sense of a life of loneliness and loss. The work requires a strange combination of intense vigilance and profound boredom. You must be constantly alert for danger, a nervous steer, a change in the weather, a snake in the grass. But these moments of high alert are separated by vast stretches of mind-numbing routine. This constant toggling between boredom and terror is emotionally exhausting. The lack of female companionship is another significant factor. The trail is an exclusively male world. For months on end, you have no contact with women. This leads to a strange, almost mythical view of the opposite sex. Women become idealized, distant figures, the subject of sentimental songs and crude jokes. This prolonged isolation from half of the human race contributes to a sense of social awkwardness and emotional immaturity. When you finally reach a cattle town at the end of the trail, your interactions with women are often explosive, transactional, and deeply unsatisfying. The psychological landscape of the cowboy is one of contradiction. You are fiercely independent, yet completely dependent on the crew. You are surrounded by others, yet profoundly lonely. You are a master of practical skills, yet your emotional world is often barren. The quiet, stoic hero of the myth is a man who has learned to suppress his own inner turmoil, to present a calm face to a world that would otherwise break him. But beneath that calm exterior is a mind adrift, shaped by the vast, silent, and lonely expanse of the American prairie. After 3 or 4 months of unrelenting hardship, of dust, loneliness, and pain, you finally arrive. On the horizon you see it, the raw, splintery collection of buildings that is a Kansas or Nebraska cattle town. Dodge City, Abilene, Ogallala. To you it is not a town, it is a mirage, a paradise, the promised land. It represents the end of the trail and the beginning of a brief, explosive, and often destructive period of release. The moment the herd is delivered and you are paid, a profound transformation occurs. The discipline of the trail evaporates. The months of pent-up frustration, loneliness, and exhaustion erupt in a frenzy of indulgence. You have your pay in your pocket, a substantial sum for a man who has had nothing for months. And the town is ready for you. It is an entire economy built around separating a cowboy from his wages as quickly and efficiently as possible. Your first stop is almost certainly the bathhouse. You pay a few bits to soak in a wooden tub filled with hot, soapy water. It is the first time you have been fully submerged in water in months. You scrub away layers of dirt, dust, and grime, the water turning a thick, muddy brown. It is a moment of almost religious ecstasy, a baptism that washes away the filth of the trail. Next, you head to the barber for a shave and a haircut. Then, to the general store, where you buy a new set of clothes. You shed your trail-worn rags and don a new shirt, new pants, perhaps even a gaudy new hat. You feel like a new man, reborn, civilized. With your pockets full of money and your body clean, you walk out onto the main street, and the real chaos begins. The cattle town is a symphony of noise and vice. The air is filled with the tinny sound of pianos from a dozen saloons, the clatter of poker chips, the shouts of drunken men, and the laughter of women. You head straight for the saloon. You are not looking for a quiet drink. You are looking for oblivion. You line up at the bar with your fellow cowboys and begin to pour cheap, fiery whiskey down your throat. The whiskey is often of terrible quality, sometimes mixed with pepper or other additives to give it an extra kick. You drink until the world dissolves into a warm, blurry haze, until the memories of the trail, the dust, the fear, the loneliness are temporarily drowned. Drunkenness often leads to violence. The stoicism of the trail gives way to swagger and aggression. Minor disputes, a spilled drink, a suspected cheat at cards. An argument over a woman can escalate into brawls and gunfights with shocking speed. The violence is not the clean, honourable duel of the movies. It is clumsy, ugly, and pathetic. Drunken men fumbling for their pistols, firing wildly, often hitting innocent bystanders. The town marshal and his deputies are overworked, dealing with a constant stream of chaos. You might find your way to a gambling hall, trying your luck at faro or poker. The games are often rigged, run by professional gamblers who can spot a naive, drunken cowboy a mile away. You watch as the wages you spent months earning disappear in a matter of hours, lost on the turn of a card. And then there is the aspect of the cattle town that is most central to your brief stay: the brothel. After months of forced celibacy, your desire for female companionship is overwhelming. The women who work in these establishments, often called soiled doves or calico queens, are a major part of the town's economy. The romantic myth of the saloon girl with a heart of gold is a fiction. These are women trapped by poverty, by circumstance, by a lack of other options. Their lives are often short and brutal, marked by violence, disease, and addiction. Your encounter with them is purely transactional. It is a brief, clumsy, and often deeply lonely experience that does little to alleviate the profound isolation you feel. It is a desperate attempt to find a moment of human connection, an attempt that usually fails, leaving you with nothing but an empty pocket and a sense of shame. Within a few days, your journey of release is over. Your money is gone. You are hungover, bruised, and filled with a sense of weary emptiness. The paradise you dreamed of on the trail has turned out to be a hollow, expensive illusion. The town, which seemed so glamorous upon your arrival, now looks tawdry and depressing in the harsh light of day. There is nothing left for you here. You might sign on with another outfit heading back south, or look for work on a local ranch. Or you might simply drift, becoming another faceless, penniless man trying to find his way in the west. The brief, glorious explosion at the end of the trail is over, and you are left with the quiet, unsettling realization that the freedom you thought you were working toward was just another cage. The great cattle drives are a seasonal affair. They begin in the spring and end in the late summer or fall. But what happens when the last herd is delivered, when the cattle towns empty out, and the first snows begin to fall on the high plains? What does a cowboy do in the winter? For many, the end of the trail means the end of employment. They drift from town to town, looking for odd jobs, or they hole up in a cheap boarding house, trying to make their meagre savings last until the spring. But for a dedicated few, the work continues, transforming into a different, and in many ways, more challenging form of hardship. This is the life of the line rider, or the winter ranch hand. If you are lucky enough to secure a winter job, you will be working on a large ranch, one of the vast cattle empires that are beginning to dominate the West. Your job is no longer to drive the cattle, but to watch over them as they graze on the open range through the harsh winter months. You are assigned a section of the ranch, a vast, empty territory that can cover hundreds of square miles. Your home is a line cabin, a tiny, primitive hut, often built of sod or rough-hewn logs, situated in the middle of nowhere. This cabin is your only shelter against the brutal winter. It is small, dark, and poorly insulated. A simple fireplace or stove provides your only heat, and you spend much of your time gathering firewood to keep it fed. Your primary duty is to ride the line. Every day, regardless of the weather, you saddle your horse and ride along the boundaries of your assigned territory, checking on the cattle. You look for animals that have strayed, that have become sick or injured, or that have fallen prey to wolves. You push the cattle out of deep canyons or brushy thickets where they might get trapped by snow. You break the ice on frozen streams so they can drink. The loneliness is absolute. It is a solitude that makes the loneliness of the trail seem like a crowded party. For weeks, even months, you might not see another human being. Your only companions are your horse and the vast, silent, snow-covered landscape. The silence is profound, broken only by the howl of the wind, the cry of a lone wolf, or the sound of your own voice, talking to yourself to keep from going mad. The cold is a relentless, physical enemy. Blizzards can sweep across the plains with no warning, reducing visibility to zero and burying the landscape in feet of snow. You can easily become lost, disoriented, your tracks erased by the swirling snow. The danger of freezing to death is constant. You learn to read the sky, to feel the change in the air that signals an approaching storm. You learn how to build a makeshift shelter in a snowdrift if you are caught too far from your cabin. Your food is monotonous and meager. You are supplied with basic rations: flour, beans, salt pork, coffee. You might supplement this by hunting rabbit or deer if you are a good shot and game is available. You cook for yourself over your small fire. Your meals, a solitary, joyless affair. You are a prisoner of the weather. When a blizzard rages for days, you are trapped in your tiny cabin, the wind shrieking outside, the snow piling up against your door. You read the same few pages of an old newspaper or a dime novel over and over again until you have them memorized. You play solitaire. You stare into the fire. The walls of the cabin seem to close in on you. The silence becomes a roaring in your ears. Many men break under this strain. They succumb to cabin fever, a form of intense anxiety and paranoia brought on by extreme isolation and confinement. You must be completely self-reliant. If you get sick, there is no one to care for you. If you get injured, you must treat yourself. A simple accident, like a fall from your horse, can be a death sentence. You lie in the snow with a broken leg, knowing that no one will come looking for you for days, perhaps weeks. Your only hope is that your horse finds its way back to the main ranch house, a silent signal that something is wrong. This is the hidden life of the cowboy, the part the legends never mention. It is a life stripped down to its barest essentials: survival, solitude, and a quiet, desperate battle against the crushing power of the winter wilderness. The heroic figure of the open range is replaced by a small, lonely man, huddled over a fire in a tiny cabin, praying for the spring. And when the spring finally comes, when the snows melt and the grass turns green, you are ready to face the dust and the chaos of the trail again. Because as hard as the drive is, it is a world of motion and companionship, a welcome escape from the profound, soul-crushing emptiness of the winter grind. The world you know, the world of the open range and the great cattle drive, is a fleeting, ephemeral thing. It is a brief, explosive chapter in American history, lasting little more than 2 decades. From the end of the Civil War in the late 1860s to the late 1880s. You may not see it happening all at once, but the forces that will destroy your way of life are already at work, quietly, relentlessly, changing the face of the West forever. The first and most powerful of these forces is a simple, cheap, and brutally effective invention: barbed wire. For years, the open range has been a vast, fenceless commons. The cattle roam free, their ownership determined by the brand burned into their hide. But homesteaders, the nesters, are pouring into the West, claiming land under the Homestead Act. They want to plough the prairie and plant crops, and they need to protect their fields from your vast, trampling herds. Wooden fences are impossible on the treeless plains, but barbed wire, patented in 1874, is a different story. It is cheap to produce and easy to install. You begin to see it everywhere: thin, sharp lines of metal stretching for miles across the plains, cutting across the old cattle trails. It is a declaration of war. The wire blocks access to water, to good grazing land. It becomes a deadly trap for your cattle, which don't see the thin strands and run into them, tearing their hides, and sometimes getting fatally entangled. The era of the free-roaming herd is ending, one sharp barb at a time. The open range is being carved up, privatized, and closed forever. The second force is the railroad. The very industry that created the demand for your cattle drives is also the one that will make them obsolete. As railroad lines push deeper into Texas and the Southwest, it is no longer necessary to drive cattle 1,000 miles to the railheads in Kansas. Ranchers can now ship their cattle to market directly from their local area. The long drive, with its immense cost in lost cattle, time, and human life, is becoming economically inefficient. The iron horse is replacing the cowboy's horse. The cattle themselves are changing. The tough, wild longhorns, so perfectly adapted to the long drive, are being replaced by new, fatter breeds from Europe, like Herefords and Angus. These breeds produce more meat, but they are not suited to the rigors of the trail. They are designed to be fattened up on fenced-in ranches, not driven across a continent. The very animal your life has revolved around is becoming a relic of the past. And then, nature itself delivers the final, devastating blow. The winter of 1886-1887 is an apocalypse. It is a season of unprecedented, terrifying cold, known as the Great Die-Up. Blizzards of unimaginable ferocity sweep across the northern plains, where vast herds are now being wintered. The temperature plummets to 40, 50, even 60 degrees below zero. The snow is so deep that the cattle cannot find the grass beneath it. They freeze to death by the tens of thousands, their bodies piling up in canyons and against the new barbed wire fences. When the spring thaw finally comes, it reveals a landscape of almost unimaginable carnage. The plains are littered with the rotting carcasses of millions of cattle. Entire fortunes are wiped out overnight. The great cattle barons who had built their empires on the open range are ruined. The industry is shattered, and it will never be the same. The old way of ranching, letting vast, untended herds roam free, is proven to be a catastrophic gamble. The future is in smaller, managed herds on fenced-in ranches, with hay grown and stored for winter feed. Your world has vanished. The trails are closed. The herds are gone. The job that defined your youth, that shaped your body and your mind, no longer exists. You are a man in your 30s or 40s, an expert in a trade that is now obsolete. You are an anachronism. What do you do? Some of you try to adapt. You become a ranch hand on one of the new, fenced-in ranches, your life of constant motion reduced to the repetitive tasks of mending fences and hauling hay. The pay is lower, the work less adventurous, the sense of freedom completely gone. Some of you drift. You become migrant laborers, following the harvests, working in mines, or taking whatever odd jobs you can find. You are haunted by the memory of a world that is gone, a world where you were a man of skill and purpose. And some of you become the stuff of legend. You are the men who cannot adapt, who cannot let go of the old ways. You might turn to rustling or robbery, using your skills with a horse and a gun for a life of crime. You become one of the aging outlaws of the closing West, a figure of tragic, romantic desperation, hunted by the very forces of law and order that are taming the land you once roamed free. The era of the American cowboy, the true cowboy of the open range, was a brief and brilliant flash, and now it is over. You are left with your memories, your scars, and the unsettling quiet of a world that no longer has a place for you. You have become a ghost, haunting the edges of a West that has moved on without you. Concluding, reflection. And so, the trail ends. Not in a blaze of glory, but in the quiet, inexorable march of progress. The cowboy, as he truly was, fades into the twilight of the 19th century, replaced by barbed wire, railroad tracks, and the settled, orderly world of farms and towns. Why then does this figure continue to hold such a powerful grip on our imagination? Why did America, a nation hurtling toward an industrial future, choose this poor, uneducated, seasonal laborer as its most enduring folk hero? Perhaps the answer lies in what the cowboy came to represent, rather than what he actually was. As America became more urban, more regulated, more complex, the myth of the cowboy offered a powerful antidote. He was a symbol of a freedom that was rapidly vanishing. He was the master of his own destiny, a man who lived by his own code, untethered to the clocks and factories and social constraints of the modern world. He was a figure of pure, simple individualism in an age of growing conformity. The myth stripped away the filth, the pain, the monotony, and the crushing poverty of the real cowboy's life. It erased the contributions of black and Mexican horsemen, recasting the hero in a purely white Anglo-Saxon mold. It transformed a low-wage worker into a noble adventurer, a lonely, often desperate man into a stoic philosopher of the plains. It took the brutal reality of a short-lived, exploitative industry and turned it into a timeless saga of American virtue. This powerful, romantic fiction was crafted in dime novels, in Wild West shows, and later perfected by Hollywood. It served a purpose. It gave a young, insecure nation a creation myth that was uniquely its own, set not in the ancient castles of Europe, but on the vast, open canvas of the American West. But tonight, we have tried to look beyond that myth, to see the man in the saddle for who he was. A young man, often poor, living a life of almost unimaginable physical and psychological hardship. A life of endless work, of constant danger, of profound loneliness. A life defined not by heroic gunfights, but by the relentless, grinding reality of dust, sweat, and cattle. The real cowboy's story is not one of triumphant individualism. It is a story of communal survival, of quiet endurance, and of a deep, unspoken connection to the animals and the landscape that both sustained and destroyed him. His legacy is not found in the heroic statues or the cinematic shootouts. It is found in the mournful notes of a trail song, sung under a vast, empty sky. It is found in the faded photographs of weathered young faces, staring out at us from across a century, their eyes holding a story far deeper and more tragic than the legends would have us believe. When we strip away the romance, we are left not with a lesser story, but with a more powerful one. A story of ordinary men who endured extraordinary circumstances, who lived and died in a world of breathtaking beauty and brutal indifference. Theirs is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of a world that was determined to break it. And that, perhaps, is a more heroic story than any myth could ever tell.